This is Hashtag Finance, presented to you by the Canadian Securities Exchange, the exchange for entrepreneurs. With your host, Anna Serin.
Hi, my name's Anna Serin. I'm Director of Listings Development with the Canadian Securities Exchange, and I am happy to be joined today here with Terry Harbort. He is CEO of Talisker Resources. Terry, I am thrilled to finally get a chance to speak with you. I've been wanting to speak with you guys for some time. I'm excited about your listing, and we are having this conversation while you are trapped in Australia in a bedroom in your mother's house. So I'm happy to hear you're at least safe and well. Thank you so much for spending the time to chat with me. You know, again, the CSE is a big fan of yours, and we're happy that you joined our family. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and Talisker?
Sure. A little bit on Talisker. So we're a very new company. Only been listed for just over 12 months. I think it was April 26th last year that we initially came out on the CSE. So just over a year, just had our first year anniversary. Myself, my first shot at being a CEO. I come from a technical background, exploration geologist, just over 25 years experience, very scientific background, PhD in structure and tectonics. So I love veins, which is very good because we're exploring for a lot of veins in Talisker. But of course, it's not just me that's behind Talisker. The Talisker exploration team, we've been together probably the longest of any exploration team currently in the industry. And are about 20 years we've been together. We're all big company trained, backgrounds in large major companies such as BHP, Anglo American, Anglo Gold Ashanti. It was actually in Anglo Gold Ashanti that we came together about 20 years as an exploration team. And all of us have very similar backgrounds as myself, very experienced team, PhD and master's levels, and all very used to working with each other. Been very fortunate to be very successful over that time period. We've got a little over 45 million ounces that's been accredited to our discovery team. And we're hoping that we can continue on that discovery rate. As a team, our objective in our careers is to get to 100 million ounces. So we're hoping that the projects that we have here with Talisker can help us hit that fantastic milestone.
That's impressive. You know, I think the one thing that is that's said over and over again, and this is a perfect example for investors to pay attention to, is one of the biggest things they talk about when you're investing in a company like this is, you know, to take a look at the management team and their good track record. And I think that's a perfect example. You guys have a history together. You've worked together on many projects. You have kind of the big mining companies behind you, and you have some results in what you guys have done. So it's super impressive. So Talisker joined us in April of last year, and you are currently underway in Bralorne, BC. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. So we picked up the old historic Bralorne camp from Avino Silver and Gold Mines in December last year. We got the transaction going. We are a very aggressive company. We've done an awful lot in our first year. So we actually started drilling in February, less than 6 weeks after we made the acquisition. Bralorne itself's a fantastic camp. Any of the listeners here who are from British Columbia will know Bralorne well. The Bralorne camp was actually the source of the Fraser River and Thompson River gold rushes back in the 1860s and 1870s. That really opened up British Columbia as a province. Hard rock mining came on there in the late 20s, 1929. And basically continued right up to the early 70s. So nearly 50 years of production.
Can I stop you for a sec, Terry, if you don't mind? Can you explain what hard rock mining is?
Sure. So alluvial mining, if anybody's watched, I think it's the Netflix show on the gold rushes up in the Yukon, where they come out with dredges and they dig up sand. So that's what's called alluvial or soft rock mining. So that's where gold gets transported or distributed in river systems.
Okay.
But that's not where the gold comes from. The gold's been eroded from a hard rock source that's often in veins or often in larger deposits. So how Bralorne was originally discovered, it was a big alluvial gold rush. So everyone would know about the California gold rushes, and there's even some where I come from in Australia, Bendigo and Ballarat, all started out as alluvial gold rushes. So it's people coming out with gold pans and sluices and processing lots of alluvial material to get nuggets of freestanding gold. But when all that runs out, people can't stop. They've got the gold bug, so they go looking for the hard rock sources. And unfortunately, it's a lot harder with gold rock. You've got to actually mine it. You've got to dig it out and process that material to get that out. So that's what I mean with hard rock. So it's actually in veins, so quartz, or what we call quartz carbonate veins,
Right.
yeah, that we mine out.
And so Talisker came together to join us last year, but it joined us with this Bralorne project. It all came together, as one unit, or did Talisker acquire it?
We acquired the Bralorne project. What we actually listed with was another land package, the Spence's Bridge land package.
Okay.
So Spence's Bridge is very interesting. It's an emerging gold belt in British Columbia, and previously these types of deposits technically called low sulfidation systems. So it's just a fancy word for gold, a type of gold vein systems. That deposit hadn't been discovered in Canada before. And another company called Westhaven Ventures discovered the Shovel Nose project. And from our background, we like exploring large belts and also emerging belts. So belts where there's not a lot of discoveries. So places where we can have potential to make multiple discoveries. So not just find one mine, but find series of them. So we were very fortunate to be able to free stake. So that's applying for ground as opposed to buying projects. Free stake nearly 200,000 hectares at the time was one of the was the largest single land stake in British Columbian history, and that gave us 85% control of that new gold belt.
Now, this is something funny, and I just have to point this out because I think I learned this a few years ago, but I finally looked up how big a hectare is, and most people might not be aware just how big 200 hectares is. How much is a hectare? Is it 1,000? Do you know what it is?
So a hectare is 100 meters by 100 meters square.
100 meters by 100 meters square, so 200 hectares.
So we got 200,000 hectares.
Sorry, 200,000 hectares. Sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah,
so I guess the easy way to visualize that, Anna, is put two football fields together side by side, and that's a hectare.
Wow.
And then
That's
times
incredible.
that by 200,000.
And, the other thing I think that's interesting for people to know is, when you have these claims, you have claims to go in and do programs on them, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you own the land. So, unless you have kind of, below surface rights. And, this is ideal for exploration companies because it's not capitally intensive. You don't have to purchase land. You can just have the claims on land, go and do your drill program. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And often if the land's held by landholders, then we generally do a landholder agreement that gives us access onto the land. Much of the land we work on is what's called Crown land, and that's actually owned by the Canadian government.
We're very well aware of Crown land. Under COVID, we've been told what land we're allowed to walk on and which one is not
right.
safe.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and kind of going into that, actually, talking about kind of the landowners and ability to access land. Let's talk about, the infrastructure of Bralorne itself and how this is actually potentially an easier opportunity than most programs out there.
Absolutely. So it's an old historic site. There was historically more than 4.2 million ounces produced there at very high grade. And we can talk about what high grade is, 17.7 grams. And because it was a historic site, it has a road, a highway right to the front gate. It's already a permitted site. So often permitting has a long timeline. As an investor, you've got to wait several years to get a permit. We've already got that permit. It's already got a tailings dam. That's where mining waste that you couldn't extract any more gold out of, that's where that gets stored, and that's already permitted and done. It's got water treatment facilities.
Sorry, Terry, can you touch on the tailings pond? Because the tailings pond has its own offerings as well, doesn't it?
Offerings related to...
Sorry, isn't there ore that can go into tailings ponds and it can be used for other ore to be extracted from?
Yeah, there is at times, particularly when the historic production was very high grade. So for instance, we had the historic average of production was 90% what they call recovery. So that's how much gold you take out of the rock. So that means 10% of the gold doesn't come out of the rock. And that 10% of gold goes into the tailings. Wow. So there's many projects around the world where they go back and they reprocess that tailings with modern techniques. And they actually can extract that free gold, basically.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And yes, sorry, going back to the infrastructure of Bralorne, obviously, as we talked earlier, it's dear to my heart. My family and I spend our summer vacations there, and to be honest, our winter ones as well. It is quite amazing. I've been up there several times, and it is like you are walking into a mining camp from 100 years ago. It's unbelievable. The little cottages that the miners built are still standing there, and the roads within Bralorne, a lot of them are still kind of dirt roads, and it's like a mining town went to sleep and woke up 60, 70 years later. It's quite something to see. But the amazing part for you guys is you have the roads, you have the access, you have water, you have everything else, which is quite unique, I think, for a lot of these projects, especially the ones that are further remote.
Well, we are very lucky that it has been inhabited for a long time, because there's electricity to it. There's Hydro BC's done a lot of development work. There's 2 hydro plants just down the road from it. The highway's maintained by the BC government 12 months of the year, so people can get access in and out. So really, we've got all this in incredible infrastructure as a real benefit to the project. Very different to a lot of early stage exploration programs that have to really build a road across a glacier. They've got to pay $100 million for a power line to come in. They have to build a camp or a town, and we just don't have to do any of that.
It's amazing. And the people up there are amazing. The community is amazing. They're all very hardworking people and lovely. So hopefully that's of benefit to you guys as well. Why don't we touch on that a little bit? So why was this such a booming mining area, and then it stopped at some point?
Well, it was booming for quite a long time, because this was one of the highest grade gold mines in Canada. It was the highest grade, longest producing gold mine in British Columbia. Throughout the 50s and the 60s, we had what was called the gold standard. So that's when they fixed the gold price. So today we can jump on our apps on our phones and we can watch the gold price going up and down on a minute basis. But things weren't like that back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. The gold price was fixed, it was set, and it changed every year. Unfortunately for the production at the 3 main mines, Bralorne, Pioneer, and King, that formed the Bralorne Complex, the gold price was fixed. And when the last mine closed in January 1971, the gold price was $35 US an ounce.
Wow, that's amazing.
Very low. When we put that into current dollar value, so 2020 dollar value, that's $220 an ounce, current dollars.
That's unbelievable. And so it just economically wasn't viable anymore to maintain the mines open.
No, it was just wasn't enough cash. They were going quite deep. Water was creeping up, and we compare that now. Now we're over $2,500 Canadian an ounce.
Yeah.
And back then the US dollar and Canadian dollar were at parity, 1:1.
Yeah.
So we're nearly 10 times better economics now.
So this is I don't know how much you'd be able to comment on this, especially since, you're kind of in Australia and haven't been on the ground here for a little bit. But do you think, under what has occurred over the past 2 months, do you think investors will start to look at projects that are closer to home, where you're not having to you're not having to maneuver your team out to remote locations in other countries, under other jurisdictions, with kind of what we're going through globally right now? Do you think for Canadians, we're going to start looking more internally at these projects?
Well, I hope so, because I think we've probably got the best one out there.
Yeah.
All of our projects are within a couple of hours drive, very easy access. I think the fly-in, fly-out scenario is really quite difficult. It's something in the mining industry that we've been caught up with in the world, and particularly dealing with local communities, dealing with Indigenous and First Nation groups. It is a concern. Whereas if you're part of that community, an integral part of that local community, then I think it makes it a lot simpler and a lot less risk.
Well, even getting somebody on a plane nowadays, who knows, what that looks like. And if you get them out to a site, will you be able to get them home? Such as yourself, we don't know when we can get you home and get you back to work over here. So I appreciate the hours that you're working right now, and I'm sure your shareholders do as well. Speaking of your shareholders, why don't we talk about, I'm always intrigued to talk to our issuers about their financing experiences. You guys, from typically what we're seeing from exploration companies on our exchange, you guys managed to do quite a hefty raise. So why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we've been quite active in a number of fronts since listing. Taking our market cap from our share price from 15 cents to 65 pre-COVID crash. We've recovered some of that back to 40 cents again now. Taking our market cap from under 10 million up to 100 million within the first year. Pre-COVID crash, we're back to about 70 million, back on that same trajectory. And our financing supports continued with that. We've done 3 financings since being listed. All of them were done without warrants, so we had very good support. The last 2 that we did were done at premiums to market. And the last one that we closed in February this year was a bought deal. It was 90% institutionally backed, and we can chat about some of these institutions. And it was done without warrants at a premium.
So I'll just touch on that a little bit, just in case people don't understand what that means. So a warrant is classified in a financing as a sweetener, and it's called a sweetener because it is there to try and entice shareholders to come and do the financing. So the sweetener is there, on top of which you mentioned that you did it without a sweetener, but on top of which also private placements are typically done at what's called a discount to market. So they get the benefit of buying in at a small discount to what it's trading at the market. So the fact that you were able to do a raise at premium to what it's trading on daily at the market as well, without offering a sweetener, says a lot about what the intrigue that shareholders had into your project. It says huge amounts, actually, especially in the exploration space. On top of which, you said the last financing you did was institutional, which again is not something we see a lot of on the exploration side and the bought deal. So congratulations. I mean, you guys are doing a fantastic job. And just wanted to make sure I explained to our listeners, what all of those things really mean. And that's a big deal.
Yes, look, and in total we've raised around about $30 million in our first year. We've seen large raises in other spaces, such as the marijuana, blockchain and Bitcoin in their time, but we haven't really seen that sort of money flowing back into junior exploration. So I think we're very fortunate at the end of the down cycle, and hopefully we're in the start of the up cycle now, and these trends will continue.
Well, and here's the thing too, and this is something that maybe people don't understand if they haven't invested much in the exploration space, is there is no revenue in exploration. Exploration is, it's capitally intensive, because what you need to do is pay for the drill programs, and those are typically done not as often on shelf prospectuses. Most of the time you see them done outside of their initial listing. You see them mostly done on private placements. And so it's not always easy, and depending on the timing in the market, it's not always easy to raise capital, whereas other sectors might have the opportunity to show some revenue. So again, it just shows how strong your team is and how strong that project is. So that's very exciting. One thing you had talked about, and I just want to, sorry to jump back and forth here, but you had talked about the fact that it was high grade results that you got, and 17, I think it was 17, where are my notes?
17.7.
17.7. So can you explain what that means?
Sure. So in general, mines are divided between high grade, low grade, but it all depends on the mining method that's applied. So what we're looking at is narrow vein mining, or underground mining. So in general, to be economic, you need to have a high grade. So the average sort of production grade around the world for these mines to be economic is around about 5 to 6 grams per ton. So anything above that means that your mine will make a lot of money. So historically, the average grade here was 17. So that's almost 3 times what a good producing mine in the Abitibi will make.
Amazing.
Other mines, an open pit mine is generally what we know. It's a low grade or bulk tonnage mine, so that's around 1 gram. But certainly, what we're looking at is underground veins.
And just to also explain a bought deal is when a brokerage firm will choose to underwrite the full financing, and take responsibility for filling that, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
And that shows an incredible sign of their I've lost words in COVID. Their incredible belief in what the project is and what you guys are able to pull from it, correct?
Yes, and it means they've often been approached by investor groups and funds that are willing to put the money up prior to the raise.
So what does Talisker have planned for this year? And this is also interesting to me, as we have this conversation a few months into a bit of a shutdown here. You guys have opened up your doors. I believe I saw a press release about that. You've started operations again?
Yeah, so just to take a step back, we closed operations on the 1st of April in response to the COVID crisis, and in consultation with our First Nation partners and our local community partners who were quite concerned about introduction of the virus and also their capacity to manage a serious outbreak. So we reacted very quickly and said, do the right thing and we'll shut down. And then since we've been in constant negotiation with them, we've also been helping out where we can with food banks and medical banks, to assist the communities. And then as things have calmed down, particularly in British Columbia, we've approached them again about restarting our activities, and we restarted just last week in Bralorne with the rig turning again. And our Spence's Bridge program, we've got 22 geologists going into the field on the 15th of June. So we suspended that, postponed it, I guess, for 6 weeks. And now we'll be starting that again. At Bralorne, we're drilling. That's all that we're doing. We've drilled 5 holes up till now. We've got results from 2, and another 3 are coming in. We're drilling a total to the middle of the year of just over 11,000 meters. So quite a sizable program.
Wow. And, you know, I think something to point out as well is it 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 can make or break some of these small communities. Having you guys come in and hire people, you know, giving to the food bank and being a community partner is very important. You know, and I know that you guys have good relationships with the First Nation communities there, but also just being able to employ people during this time is incredibly important and valuable to them, I'm sure.
Well, it is, you know, particularly going through Lillooet, which is our closest resource base, if you like, for the project. A lot of their income throughout this season comes through tourism.
Yeah.
And if there's nobody passing through, it's very difficult for the cafes, for the restaurants, even for the gas stations, for the takeaway food places. It's quite difficult. So, you know, we're an actively supporter of local communities, of supermarkets, and, you know, buying our gas local to help these communities. It makes a big difference when there's nothing coming in to have us supporting our business through these local centres.
Absolutely. And it really is. I mean, it's quite a special part of the world, in my heart anyway, but it's quite remote. I mean, you know, there's the Hurley to get up there. Have you done the Hurley yet?
I haven't done the Hurley. No, it's always been winter
Oh,
time, but I hear it's a lovely road in the
you got
summer.
to do the Hurley. It's the only way to get up there. There's actually hats you can buy that say "I survived the Hurley." I've survived a few of the Hurleys, but and then there's obviously the actual road, the paved road that goes up, and the Hurley's only open in the summer. But yeah, I mean, these communities really will, you know, depend on this kind of work being done. Terry, I can't thank you enough for your time. I'm excited to see what Talisker is going to do up there. I'm excited that there's projects happening up there. I'm excited that mining is happening again in British Columbia. You know, British Columbia just has such a rich history in the mining sector. You know, so it's neat to see some of these old projects come back alive. I'll be excited to have you come back to Canada and get your feet back on the ground here, out of your mom's basement in Australia and in the right time zone here with us. And like I said, I have plans to go out this summer, so I hope I can go up and I'll check it out, and I'll take some footage, and the CSE will show it off. We'll show off Talisker.
Lovely. Most welcome to come and visit the site. It's a lovely site, and we've got some beautiful rocks, beautiful rocks coming out of the ground.
Thank you again. You know, again, I also appreciate that you guys are one of our newer issuers. I love that the sector is still doing well, you know, in these uncertain times. I love that we still have a market in these uncertain times, and that people are still putting money into investments. So that's so great as well. So if you don't mind, Terry, if we could do this again sometime soon, maybe once you've done your drill program this summer, why don't we revisit in the fall and chat about what you guys found?
Fantastic. Be great to show everyone some of our lovely drill core with some visible gold in it.
Pictures of me with them.
There you go.
Well, thank you again, Terry. We'll talk to you soon.
Magic. Thank you very much.
Stay safe.